Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another of the Radibros Podcast. Once again, you are joined by your lovely host, Neo, and
Jerry.
okay, and today we're going to talk about a rather interesting topic with the two of us here, and that is about trust. I believe that trust can be an important thing in our daily lives. It is something that we must have and should always have by our side. But tell me, Jerry, in your opinion, what do you think trust is?
I think trust is the factor that you can, rely on someone, right? Like, you feel like someone can do what you expect of them when you entrust them with something. Or, like, you know that person won't be, betraying you or, they won't be letting you down in anything. I think that's roughly called trust.
So, in your words, Jerry, it's basically the ability to believe somebody, right, in doing something. Am I correct?
Yes, I think that's quite about it.
And that's actually quite interesting. Personally, when I think of trust, I think of like just the basic foundation, just like what Jerry said, is that the ability to believe somebody, right, and your expectations of what they're able to do, right, and you hope that they're gonna do it because if not, you will have something called disappointment, and you would be pretty sad if somebody broke your trust, right? Well, then tell me, Jerry, in your life or from your personal experience, up until now, who do you trust the most?
Well, I gotta say the person that I trust the most is probably my mother. Yeah, definitely my mother's, because she do things for me unconditionally, and all she wants the best for me. So why wouldn't I trust her?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say that the person who I trust the most is probably my mother as well. She's also very caring and is very attentive to me. Coming in close second or third, probably my other family members, but by far, I believe my mother is the person who really cares for me the most. And usually, here's actually a funny story from my own experience. Usually, occasionally, some of my family members might badmouth each other. Not in a really bad way, though, but just like sometimes you hate somebody in your house, you might just vent your frustration. Right? At other times, though, it's just different. So that's like the kind of thing that I want all of you listeners to imagine. Just sometimes we just want to vent our frustration on a family member. And usually I would eavesdrop a little bit, right? And I would tell back to my mother if she was ever badmouthed. So it's to the point where I trust my mother so much, I would do almost anything to protect her because she's very lovely. And what about you, Jay? What about your personal story as well as like who would you trust besides your mother?
Beside my mother, I guess the person I would trust most would be my best friend Leo here.
Well, I'm actually flattered to hear that. Well, what's your reasoning?
We've been together since birth.
Can you
I've met him before we've been born. He don't remember it, but I remember meeting him like in heaven or something.
Dude,
But
that's crazy.
well, beside that point, he had been treating me a lot, and I've been treating him a lot too. Asian culture and all that. But that's the foundation of trust. We trust each other enough to be able to pay them something and know, it's just friends.
Yeah, I think that friendship, right? Trust in friendship. Now that you mention it, actually, I do believe that trust formed within friendships could be quite important. Now, personally, from my experience, I would say that so far I've made a lot of trustworthy friends. I've been able to ask them for example, maybe some extra information in class. If on the day that they are off, right, or they're absent from school, I would be able to tell them that, hey, there's some information that you need to know. I would alarm them of the tests or something of the sorts. Basically, if you are willing to help other people, then I believe that they are also willing to help you too. No matter if they're family, friends or even strangers, right? If you're willing to help somebody, they might place their trust in you, and that's a good thing. And so, Jerry, could you also tell more about your personal experience or like a story of when you trusted somebody, maybe a family member or a friend?
Well, I guess. Wait, let me think of a good story. Well.
Well, it could be just for your context, Jerry. It could be a wholesome story, right, that has a good ending, or it could be a rather sad one that might have a hint of betrayal inside it.
Well, I remember. Well, yeah, I remember trusting my mom on buying me a airport. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Recently, I trust my mom would keep a promise that when I get an SAT of 1,500 or more, she would give me a PC. And well, truth be told, she did give me a PC.
Wow. Okay.
And
Yeah.
wait. Hold on. It's an RTX 4080 Super with a core CPU of an i9, 264GB RAM stick, and well, a cooling system, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fans, as well as a what's it called again? Oh, an A's motherboard with a 244 hertz refresh rate, high definition, screen, monitor, and 2 set of speaker. Yeah. Well, about that one time though, I remember when I was like grade 5, Mom told me she would bring me to Disneyland when I got 3 gold score, but
the Disneyland was never real, right?
Disneyland was never real.
Oh my god, I do feel a little bit bad for you, but hey, personally, Disneyland, I'd say Disneyland is a child's dream back then, right? You think it's still popular recently? Maybe I think it's still very popular among Americans.
Yeah, it's still a dream of mine to go there and have fun. But now I'm more of a my mind guys. I need my mind.
Yeah, maybe theme parks aren't the thing for us teenagers anymore, and I get it, right? But yeah, speaking of which, Jerry, the setup that you mentioned, right, is actually the one we're using for recording our podcast. So yes, once again, thank you very much, Jerry's mother, for sponsoring us with all of the tools that we need. Right, okay. Anyways, next up, alright, Jerry, personally, I think that whenever I place trust in my friends, or when you place your trust in me, how do you feel knowing that somebody is able to fulfill your requests?
Well, for me personally, I don't really feel like that's an obligation or something. You can fulfill my request, sure. If it's like a really important one, sure. You fulfill it, I trust you a lot more. If you don't, that's fine. I know you got your own problem to handle. It's not like, everyone got their own problem to handle. I won't distrust someone just because they didn't fulfill what I asked of them, right?
Well, actually, Jared, now that you mention it, right, it's more about what you mentioned is that you would also trust somebody, right, even if they don't, or if they aren't, right, they aren't able to fulfill your requests. That's because you trust them, right? And I believe that it also happens on the opposite side or on the flip side of the argument as well, is that they also trust that you will know of their problems, and I believe that's also an interesting part. Let's put this context into school, right, and your personal experience as well. I'll start first for this session, and I think that sometimes you would ask your teachers that you would say to your teachers that, hey, teach, I have maybe like a cold, I might have some kind of sickness, right? I've come down with some kind of sickness and I might need to take a break, or hey, my internet got interrupted and I couldn't finish the test, or my test was interrupted midway. This actually happened to me, And I was very glad that the teachers at the tech support of my school, they were understanding enough in order to help me retake the test again, because it was just like a system error. And at the same time, I did have proof, but even if I didn't, they would probably let me try to do it again. So in reality, you can see that there's trust in both directions. The teacher believes that the student needs help, and the student, right, trusts that the teacher will do something in order to help them. And I think that is a very insightful way that trust is communicated between one person to another. Now, at the same time, Jerry, let's also ask you the same question. Let's try to see, can you tell me like the trust between an employee versus the trust that an employee has versus their employer? Like what kind of trust is facilitated around that?
I guess like the trust that's formed when with an employee and employers, that employee trusts that employer would, treat them right, give them the enough benefit, the work rights, and enough money on the paycheck to feed their family and all. And the employer, they trust their employee will finish the work on time to be able to reach their KPI to keep their company running, and to be able to provide them with their appropriate paycheck. And for now I think about it, it sounds more like expectation more than anything else.
But still, I do believe that trust has to do with expectations, right? That's why you would need to trust people in the first place. And then over time, right, Jay, in your definition, right, that expectation will be lowered and lowered because you rely more on people. No, not really rely more on. You understand them enough to be able to depend on them to the point where there's not really much trust needed, right? There's not a lot of expectations needed because you trust them and you understand fully. Personally, I also see this kind of, how would you say this? Not really reference, but you could also see this dynamic within marriages, right? Between the wife and the husband, right? Inside a family, you would probably, in my personal experience, I see that my mother and my father really trust each other, right? Of course, they're ready to help each other out in different times, and most of it, right, would be just really loving each other unconditionally. Right? Same goes with parent and the child in the family, right? The child will child will probably not lie, right, of where they're going. I've been raised very well. I think Jerry as well. And we don't really lie to our parents about going anywhere, right? We make it clear that, hey, I'm going to this place and at some time, right, I will go home. Right? I'm a good boy. And yes, right, we basically gain trust, right? But because it's for our own good. We're not doing it so that we can go somewhere that's naughty, okay? So just so everybody knows, right? Using trust as a tool in order to help you, in many ways possible, not to take advantage of others. We'll actually mention that a little bit later. But anyways, so you can see that trust is important. Not only does it help you, but it also helps other people. And when we live in a society that everyone is helping each other, is supporting each other, and trusts each other, it would be a much more beautiful society. However, Jerry, as you already know, right, is that not everything is rainbow and sunshine. In life, there are people who will take advantage of trust and use it in a bad way. So, for example, Jerry, could you name me the most common examples of people betraying one another's trust?
I guess the most common, or the one that you guys most likely seen already, or cheating. Like when let's say a guy go on a date with two or more women, or
right. So basically, unscrupulous relationships, right?
Yeah,
that means
yeah.
One man or like maybe even a woman, right? You might go out with multiple people of a different gender, right? Of the different gender, and yeah, honestly, that's a very good one. What about scamming, Jerry? You think scamming counts as one of those too?
I guess scamming do, but once again, if you're scamming people, your company is known for that, and not you're not really betraying anyone's trust because that's what you do.
I personally, I would argue a little bit here, Jerry. I'd say that, like, how should I put this in words? Is that when you approach somebody, right, even though you have the bad intention already, right, you're still trying to gain people's trust. It's just like a one-way trust, however, right? No, there is still two-way trust. Sorry, you're just trying to gain the other person's trust so that later you can cut off the ties easily, because in real trust, right, the link between two people is strengthened. The trust link is strengthened. But in a scamming relationship like that, it's just one single line. There's not many multiple lines branching out, and it can be snapped or it can be cut very easily. Right?
Yeah.
If a person just scams, they finish scamming and then they go away, right?
Yep.
They finish their objective, maybe stealing money, right, from a poor old woman, and then they just leave. They also have no remorse, right, Jay? Okay, so personally, Jay, when you betrayed somebody's trust, how would you feel about it?
I would feel really bad, and I would like try to like make up for it something.
So in other words, right, you would feel very remorseful, right? You would feel you would feel very guilty of things that you have done. You would actually have emotions. But for scammers, right, the trust link isn't that big, right? It's not that strengthened. So as a result, they can easily just ignore the victim that they have just scammed. They would have no emotions, no remorse, all right?
Yes. Essentially, because they're doing it for money. That's like, it's a goal of them.
Yes.
It's not really, okay, if I were a scammer and I want money, okay, sure, I got my objective. I would just forget about what I just did, because why would I remember it, right? Why would I want to give myself the entire, business of having to being remorseful and all that, right?
Exactly. So yes, as everybody can see, it really depends, right? How strong the trust link is really depends on your objective, right? If your objective is to establish a strong relationship, right, with other people, so that both of you can rely on each other, or not only both of you, but you and other people can rely on each other, then that's a good thing. Right? That is a good relationship, that the trust link is going to last very long. It's reinforced. However, in a rather one-sided way, right, is that the other person trusts you more than you trust them, then it could cause a very big problem, and the trust link, as I mentioned, will not be strengthened at all. It is rather weak, and people can literally cut ties.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm very funny. Right?
You're very funny, All
right, thank you very much, Jerry. Speaking of which, though, between two sides and regarding trust, I would like to bring up the topic of the prisoner's dilemma. Jerry, you probably heard of this, right?
Yeah, it's the one where they present a two prisoner with, if you confess and the other guy didn't confess, you get to leave, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So in order to describe this a little bit more precisely, right, the prisoner's dilemma states that in the situation, right, you and another prisoner, will have two of the following options. You could either let somebody, or you could either confess, right, about your crimes or the other person, right, or both of you could choose to remain silent. There are, I think, a total of 3 different outcomes. Just as Jerry mentioned, if you confess and the other didn't say anything, they refused to say anything, then you will be released free of charge, while the prisoner gets, let's say, 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, if both of you refuse to say anything, then I think each of you will receive a 1-year sentence, right? Of course, the prisoners don't know this beforehand. That's what makes it so interesting. And if both of you decide
No, I think that both the prisoner know beforehand. That's why it make it a dilemma.
Oh, yeah, that's my bad. Meanwhile, right, if both of them chooses to confess, right, then they will get 5 years each, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yes, if both of them gets confesses, then each of them gets a moderate sentence of 5 years. However, if they both of them stay silent, each of them will get a rather light sentence, only around 1 year. So in this case, right, it's really between whether you would want to free yourself of the burden and let the others take the 10-year sentence, or both of you would probably decide to stay silent, right? And each of you might get a rather light sentence. Of course, this isn't really, personally, I don't think this is as easy as it seems, right, Jerry?
Yeah, definitely not.
And this concept, right, or this rather interesting dilemma has actually been used in many different game shows, and I think most notably, it's the game called Split or Steal, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I think they call it golden ball, right?
I'm not very sure on that. We'll have to check it later. But basically, right, it also works on the same premise. The prisoner's dilemma actually has a money variant, right? I believe it's like $100, $50, and like, yeah, I think that's basically it. Or if you decide to both of you, if both of you decide to steal the money, however, then both of you will receive nothing.
Yeah, both of you will receive nothing.
Right? And if you decide to split, then it's a 50-50 split, right? Meaning each of you will get a
Yeah, but
$50.
if the other guy decides to steal it, then
Yeah, they take it all and you have nothing to your name.
yeah, exactly.
So you can see that in each of these scenarios, it's definitely different, right? In the prisoner's dilemma, it just feels like you can see that if both of them confesses, at least it's still 5 years, alright? But in the money game, right, split or steal, you see that they will not get any money if both of them contest for that. So like, it's very interesting to see that each of the variants, right, have their own strategies. But I do believe that, but Jerry, would you also agree with me that because there are people who are untrustworthy in life, that's why it makes life so interesting, right? Because not everybody we can trust, right? It's not everyone we can trust, and at some point we have to correctly, right, using our own instincts and experience, we place our trust in the right people. Don't you think it's also interesting? Or would you prefer if like the world is everybody trusts each other?
Well, the world where everyone trusts each other certainly would be better. But then again, as you said, well, people lying would make things much more interesting.
Exactly. But yes, I'm not trying to say that you should be betraying others' people trust. No.
It's just interesting, guys.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
It's just interesting, right? And it would also enable people to dive into different disciplines of science. For example, why do people lie? Why do people betray each other's trust, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, right? It opens up the way for us to understand ourselves more, to understand the human psychology. And without betrayal, without distrust, I don't think that would be possible. But of course, speaking of distrust, we finally move on to one of our last questions of today, Jerry. As we mentioned, right, suspicion, right, or distrust, right, isn't the thing that we want, but it is a necessary evil. So, when do you think distrust or suspicion is needed?
Well, I guess distrust or, well, mistrust are really needed when, let's say you're doing politics, right? Let's say there's some bad thing happening inside your country. Now, you wouldn't want to tell the entire world that something bad is happening to your country, would you?
Yeah, I think that at some times we need to keep our country in internal affairs a little bit, how should I say this, secret, right? Secretive. We don't really want to expose our weakness to different countries. Anything that we could handle, then we should try to handle it ourselves.
Precisely.
That's a very good point, Jerry. And of course, another common example that we also mentioned earlier is, of course, scammers. It's always a good idea to, give yourself a second opinion, right? Or doubt yourself a little bit, because you might not be sure if the person that's contacting you, are they real or not. Because my mother has has gotten a scammer to contact her before, and she almost fell for it just because all of the details were intricately conducted to the point where my mother was even doubting herself as well. But thank goodness, with the help of my father and the other people, right, she soon realized that it was a scam. So as a result, right, distrust, right, or you can see that distrust can be a rather helpful tool to us as a whole. What about personal development, Jerry? Is it good to have self-doubt? I know it's bad, but when is it good to have self-doubt?
Well, I guess self-doubt is really good when you're, well, let's say, trying to improve yourself, right? You wouldn't want to be saying that, oh yeah, I'm good at everything and all that. You really want to, well, give yourself that doubt that, oh hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong and maybe I can find something to fix it, correct? Yeah, and that's about it.
Yeah, honestly, I would agree with you on that, right? And just to polish the answer up a little bit, right? Yes, right? It is necessary for you to have self-doubt because it's one way for you to make sure that you always improve. However, just a little bit of warning for everyone, right? You should also be confident in your own abilities, right? Sometimes you are truly good at something and you just don't realize it, right? So just toughen up, right? And believe in yourself sometimes. But when you feel like you have room for improvement, right? Or whenever you feel like self-doubt is possible, go ahead, okay? We're not stopping you. It is good for your personal development. And that should be all for our topic on trust and distrust for today. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in for today's episode. And we'll see you on the next for Radibros Podcast. Later, everyone.
All right, I'll see you later.